I'm Therese Finn, and I'm filling in for Reverend Tommy while he and Rosemary are out of town for the holiday. And it's coming up fast, only a few days till Thanksgiving. And I know this can be a very, very busy time of year with shopping, cooking, planning travel, getting ready for guests. So this morning I wanted us to take this time out of the busyness to think about the reason that we have Thanksgiving, to be grateful, to be thankful. And we'll explore how and why gratitude can make a positive difference in our lives. We all learned about the first Thanksgiving as school children, how the Pilgrims invited the local indigenous people in friendship to share their Thanksgiving, well, their harvest feast. Thanksgiving happened, I think, 100 years or so later. And as it turns out, the real story is a little less kumbaya than what we learned in school. And the relationship between the Pilgrims and the settlers and the Native Americans probably had more to do with mutual defense than friendship. And believe it or not, it's much more likely that they had seafood for dinner than turkey. But still, it was a good story, and it was so much fun when we were kids, drawing turkeys by tracing our fingers with crayons. Remember that? It wouldn't have been the same with a fish. And the custom of celebrating harvest home with feasts and gatherings is one that many cultures have practiced ever since people learned how to grow their own crops. And even though now most of us gather our ingredients at H-E-B instead of from the fields, the idea of coming together with friends and family to be grateful is still what the holiday is all about. And it's a wonderful tradition to set aside a day just to be thankful. But what about the other 364? Over the past several years, the idea of making gratitude a daily practice has generated an avalanche of scientific studies, TED Talks, websites, and books. So out of curiosity, I did a search on Amazon for books with gratitude or thankfulness in the title. And this is going to blow you away, but I came up with 60,000 results. Now, I'm sorry, I only had time to read about half of them in preparing for this talk, so if I missed something, you will have to forgive me. So why is gratitude so important to so many people, and how does it make a difference in our lives? Robert Emmons is the author of several of those 60,000 books. He's a doctor of psychology at UC Davis, and he's considered one of the world's foremost experts in the scientific study of gratitude. His studies found that people who felt grateful more often and more deeply experienced a number of physical, psychological, and social benefits, and I've listed them on this slide. Stronger immune system, lower blood pressure, more joy, more forgiving, less lonely. That's an impressive list of positive results that most of us would love to see in our own lives. But Dr. Emmons also looked at how being thankful actually produces these transformative effects. And he identified 4 reasons that gratitude makes us healthier and happier. First, gratitude helps us appreciate things even after the novelty wears off. We all know that feeling of excitement when something new and wonderful comes into our life. We buy a new car, we get a new house, maybe even we fall in love. But after the new car smell is gone, the house needs roof repairs, and the new love turns into a husband who simply cannot be trained to leave the toilet seat down. Some of the appreciation can dim. So being grateful reminds us of all the good things in our lives and helps keep us from falling into the habit of taking them for granted. Gratitude also blocks negative and toxic emotions like envy, resentment, shame, and regret, all of which can erode and undermine our happiness. Those harmful emotions simply cannot coexist with a grateful consciousness. A number of studies also show that grateful people are resistant to stress and recover more quickly from trauma and adversity. They manage to see beyond life's negative experiences, and they have the perspective that things will get better. And finally, grateful people have a higher sense of self-worth. When you're grateful, you have the perception that others care about you and value you, and that helps you see the good in yourself. So it's pretty clear that choosing to be grateful is good for us. So why aren't more of us actually doing it more consistently? Well, the answer is one that will be familiar to us Unity students. Practicing gratitude requires a shift in consciousness. We have to change our thinking if we want to change our lives. And before we can change our thoughts, we need to be aware of what they are. Do you remember a few years ago when the complaint-free world movement was popular? We all wore a little purple bracelet and we made a vow not to complain about anything for 21 days. And then if we slipped up, we had to go back to day one and start over. Well, I was one of the first to sign up thinking it would be a piece of cake for an affirmation-loving, positive-thinking unitic like me. But I have to admit, even with several do-overs, I never made it past a week. I never realized at all what a world-class complainer I was until I actually started paying some attention to it. So the first step is to recognize the thoughts we're holding in consciousness and how we express them in our words and actions. I know I can slip into the habit of focusing on the things that need to be fixed in my life. Like, instead of noticing the beauty of the oak trees in my yard, I see the weeds that need to be pulled or the bushes that really need to be trimmed. Or I get so distracted by all the undone things on my to-do list that I don't give myself credit for everything I've already checked off. When all I see is what's missing in my life, I'm blind to all the blessings that I already have. Angeles Arian is a cultural anthropologist, and she's the author of Living in Gratitude, which inspired the title of this talk. She says we can overcome this kind of negative bias by developing what she calls grateful seeing. Grateful seeing is a conscious decision to look first for what's good and working well in our lives, without denying any hardships or difficulties we might already be experiencing along with them. And when we look for the good, even in the midst of challenges, it shifts us out of a sense of fear and lack and into a place where we can see possibility and abundance. My big sister, Karen, who is one of my spiritual teachers, and I've mentioned her before, she was also one of the best role models for how to live gratefully. When she was going through chemo for metastatic brain and lung cancer, the clinic where she had her treatments had a therapy dog named Bettina. And Bettina was a beautiful black lab who would go up to the patients, and if invited, she would lay her head on their lap and look up at them with those beautiful brown eyes and help keep them calm and centered while they were having their infusions. And I remember when I was driving my sister to her chemo appointments, she always talked about how much she looked forward to seeing Bettina that day. Now, she could have focused on anxiety about her treatment, but instead she chose to see gratefully by placing her attention on how much she looked forward to spending time with that wonderful dog. So when we make the shift from concentrating on what we lack to realizing what we have, we begin to see everything around us as a gift. It's like starting every day like a kid on Christmas morning. And there's a wonderful holiday video I saw a couple of years back about a man who wakes up in the morning to find that everything in his life, his wife, his kids, the faucet with running water, his coffee cup and car, are covered in Christmas wrapping paper. He runs through the house, opening each one and joyfully expressing his appreciation. Wow, I have clean water. I have 2 kids. Can you believe it? I have a car. It was such a wonderful reminder to see everything with a grateful heart. And okay, it's probably not realistic to expect ourselves to maintain that level of enthusiasm. In fact, it would drive everyone around us crazy if we did. But we can find time each day to pause and appreciate the good things, like taking an extra moment to savor the aroma of the coffee before we drink it, or noticing the fresh, clean water that comes out of the faucet whenever we want it. Or maybe by stopping for a few seconds before we drive somewhere to appreciate the freedom and mobility that having a car gives us. And even more than what we have, our most precious gift is who we are. We're created in the image and likeness of God, which means the qualities that are God's are in us. We were given not only a physical body, which is kind of a nice thing to have, but also a divine nature with all the strengths and powers we need to learn, grow, create, and thrive as human and spiritual beings. If you trace the word gratitude back to its earliest roots, it comes from an Indo-European word, which I won't try to pronounce, but what it means is to praise, to celebrate, to be in contact with the divine. So being grateful is literally being in the presence of God. And the more we live in a state of gratitude, the more we see God in ourselves, others, and everything around us. I'd like to close this morning by watching a short video by Brother David Steindl-Rast, who was one of the early leaders of the gratitude movement and also a beautiful human being. And some of you may remember seeing this on one of our Zoom services last year, but I think it's worth seeing again because it expresses better than any words I have what it truly means to live in gratitude. So here is a grateful life. Whoops, I knew I was going to do that.
You think this is just another day in your life? It's not just another day. It's the one day that is given to you. Today. It's a gift. It's the only gift that you have right now. And the only appropriate response is gratefulness. If you learn to respond as if it were the first day in your life and the very last day, then you will have spent this day very well. Begin by opening your eyes and be surprised that you have eyes you can open. That incredible array of colors that is constantly offered to us for pure enjoyment. Look at the sky. We so rarely look at the sky. We so rarely note how different it is from moment to moment with clouds coming and going. Open your eyes, look at that. Look at the faces of people whom you meet. Each one has an incredible story behind their face. Not only their own story, but the story of their ancestors. all that life from generations and from so many places all over the world flows together and meets you here like a life-giving water if you only open your heart and drink. Open your heart to the incredible gifts that civilization gives to us. You flip a switch and there is electric light. Turn a faucet and there is warm water and cold water. And drinkable water. A gift that millions and millions in the world will never experience. And so I wish you that you will open your heart to all these blessings and let them flow through you. That everyone whom you will meet on this day will be blessed by you, just by your presence. Let the gratefulness overflow into blessing all around you. And then it will really be a good day.
Forgot to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.